Hey guys, it's Charlene. Today I'm sharing with you the My Monthly Hero kit for February, and we're going to make 2 cards. So included in this kit is a 6x8 clear stamp set with 15 coordinating die cuts, Dream watercolor dot palette, 2 sheets of black watercolor paper, and a water flow brush. This set is so cool. It was inspired by dreams and surrealist art. I just love all of those images. Let's get started. So I'm going to be sharing lots of different tips and tricks and techniques with you today. The first I'm going to be sharing is how to create a faux stencil using cardstock. Essentially, all you're going to do is draw on the image that you like, and then you are going to cut it out with scissors. That's all there is to it. It's a really easy technique, in particular for creating clouds, which is what I'm doing here. You can see I created those little kind of hills, and then I just went along and cut. That's it. Now I'm coming in with some Tumbled Glass Distress Oxide. This ink color works really, really well for clouds because it's kind of creamy. It's a very light blue. I think it just makes a really perfect sky. So you're going to use a really light hand when you're doing this. And what you want to do is you want to start from your faux stencil that you've created and brush that onto the paper. You don't want to go direct to the paper here just because you don't want to have any really harsh lines or spots or anything like that. You don't need very much ink at all. You just kind of do a little swipey and then you go back and forth on your paper. Obviously, I have this sped up pretty quickly, so it does take longer than this, but it's a pretty easy way to create a cloud background on your card. And then once you're done, you're just going to go in and with a little bit more ink, go around the edges. That's going to create sort of a halo effect, which is really nice. And don't worry about the strong line on the edges of your card because I'm going to trim this panel down. That's what I usually do, and then you don't have to worry about that. So now I'm coming in with some anti-static powder and then using my surface sweep to get any excess powder off. And now I'm using some VersaMark embossing ink and I'm going to stamp that cool door that opens up to clouds. I thought this would be perfect with a cloud background. Now I'm coming in with some black embossing powder and I'm just going to sprinkle that all over and tap my paper to get any excess off. Off camera, I did use a flathead paintbrush just to sweep away any little extra bits of embossing powder that were stuck to my card panel. Also, when you're working with an inked panel, you do want to make sure it is nice and dry before you go in and do any kind of heat embossing because the embossing powder will stick to your inked panel. I am going to watercolor with Distress Oxides. I don't know if you guys knew that you could do this, but you can, and it's a really interesting effect because Distress Oxides are kind of creamy and opaque, so it creates this kind of layered effect. So I use some more Tumbled Glass for the clouds, and now I'm coming in, same thing with my water brush, just getting the Distress Oxide wet. I'm using ground espresso, and I'm going to use that to paint the door as well as the door frame. So you can see kind of how it layers up there, and if you get a spot that's too dark, don't worry, you can just go over with another coat. I'm using 100-pound Neenah cardstock. I'm not using watercolor paper, and that's just because I'm not doing a lot of watercoloring. I'm just doing a little bit. I'm not like covering the panel in water, so you can get away with it when you're doing this kind of minimal watercoloring like this. So once I get all of that down, I'm going to use some Wink of Stella on the clouds, and I'm just coming in and I actually do a couple coats of the Wink of Stella. I just show part of one on camera, but I think I did 2 or 3, and that helps with getting kind of even coverage as you do a coat, let it dry a little bit, and then do another coat so you don't have that streaking that sometimes you have. And now I'm coming in with Sterling Silver Spectrum Noir pen, and I'm just going to color in the handle and the door hardware to make it kind of silver. It dries back to a really nice silver color. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to use my die cut to cut out the door and the clouds. And the cool thing about this is because we did the inked panel, when we put that piece back in, you're still going to see the ink blended clouds behind the regular clouds. It's from the stamp. It's a little hard to see on camera, but it looks really cool in person. Now I'm going to stamp my sentiment on. I'm just using some Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink here. You could heat emboss and use like VersaMark or use a pigment ink if you wanted to. I didn't think it was necessary. So now I'm coming in again with that same ink, and I have stamped out 6 of the little fish that are included. There are 3 fish, so I've stamped them out twice, and then off camera I went ahead and Copic colored those. Now this is a little trick. If you are working with small die cuts like this, put a little piece of tape on top of the die cut and then put it on your surface, and you can use some kind of tool. Like there I'm using a weeding tool just to kind of push around your die cut until you get it where you want it, and then you can go ahead and push down on the tape and you don't have to worry about it moving all over the place on you. So now I've trimmed down my card panel, and I am going to adhere that with some liquid adhesive to a piece of black cardstock. I'm using Hero Arts black cardstock, which I really love. I don't have a ton of it, so I try to save it because it has this really nice intense black color. I'm gonna have to order some more. I really like it. And the black piece I have cut down to about 4 by 5¼ because I want there to be 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. So then I just cut my cloud panel so that there was also 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. So it would have been 4 by 5 about once it was trimmed down. Off camera, I cut out a piece of craft EVA foam, and I'm just adhering that to the back of the door piece, and then I'm going to use that liquid adhesive to adhere it down to the card. I think this stamp set is so cool, you guys. I still can't get over it. It's like inspired by surrealist art, which I've always loved, and it's just really unique. I've never seen a stamp set like this before, and I love it. It's so cool. All right, so coming in again, I have cut out a piece of craft EVA foam. You can see my glue kind of went crazy there, but no big deal. I just used my finger, even though I don't like getting messy if I can avoid it. I just use my finger to smooth out the glue. So adhering the craft EVA foam onto the back of the piece of black cardstock, and then I'm going to put some liquid adhesive and adhere the entire thing down to my card base. Just using an A2 sized card, 4¼ by 5½, that is top folding. Now you can pop this up in whatever way you want. I kind of thought it would be cool to have the dimension behind the door and then the dimension behind the black panel, but you can do it whatever way you think works best. So now I'm coming in and I'm adhering the little fish with liquid adhesive, and I'm treating these sort of like embellishments. I'm only using 5. I find that with embellishments, odd numbers are more pleasing to look at to the eye. And then you just want to try and balance them on your card. So you can see with these 2 little fish here, I'm doing one kind of towards the upper left, and then one's down towards a little bit more towards the middle to bottom right. And then where my sentiment is at on the bottom left with the fish, I'm going to kind of offset that or balance that with the bigger fish up towards the top right. And you can see how that kind of creates some cohesion and balance in your card. So keep that in mind when you're applying embellishments. Now I'm coming in with some Ranger enamel dots in black. I always like to do a practice run on a piece of scrap paper before I get started. Last thing you want to do is have enamel dots all over your beautiful card that you've just finished. That has happened to me before, and it's not fun. So I always take the time to do kind of a dry run on that piece of scrap paper. So there's that card. How cool does that look? So we did some faux cloud stenciling, and now we're going to do some faux wave stenciling. Same kind of thing. You're just going to draw out a simple little pattern onto a piece of cardstock and then cut it out with some scissors. No big deal. Here I'm using 3 different colors of Hero Arts ink. I'm using Pool Party and the Berry Smoothie and Splash. These are from various kind of card kit and mystery bag kind of things that I've purchased from Hero Arts in the past. And I think they go together really well, and you're going to see with the stamp that I choose, I think they look So cool. So I came in first with the pool party and now the splash, and then I'm going to do the berry smoothie, and then I'm going to repeat it down the card. Same kind of thing that we did with the clouds. You're just going to kind of start on your paper and then start on your faux stencil and then go onto your paper, because you don't want any harsh lines. And you can see I'm kind of tapping off before I go onto the paper, and you see, look how much ink is coming off. You don't need a lot of ink to do this. So make sure you're careful, because you don't want to have any like big splotchy bits on your card. And if you just tap off and go lightly, you should be able to avoid that. As you go down the page, you're just going to pull your stencil down and kind of move it a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and then you'll get that really nice wave pattern. Now I did go ahead and stamp in some Copic friendly ink. I stamped the mirror and this waterfall, and now I'm coming in with some Wink of Stella. Wink of Stella creates the coolest mirrored effect if you use a lot of it. You have to be kind of careful when you're doing this, but the effect is awesome. So you just kind of go in lightly at first, and then you ever so slightly are going to squeeze your Wink of Stella so you get a little kind of puddle. And then you're going to move that puddle around with your brush in order to fill in all the parts that you're wanting to fill in. Make sure it is completely dry before you do any Copic coloring. You can see I came in and did some Copic coloring, but you want to make sure that Wink of Stella is totally dry before you do that. Now, I did not take my stamps out of my MISTI. I left them because I wanted to come back in after all was done and dried and do some heat embossing. So I went in with some anti-static powder tool and some VersaMark ink over the top, and then I'm just using some fine detail black embossing powder, and it, I think, creates all the difference to add that embossing powder. That looks so cool. Okay, so once you've got that done, you're just going to cut those out, and I'm actually using a scalloped frame die that is from Whimsy Stamps. I used that on the card panel. I thought it went really, really well with kind of this whimsical, dreamy scene, and I just love it. I haven't seen anything like it, so I really like that as well. Now I'm going to stamp my sentiment, which I love so much. I'm not crazy. My reality is different from yours. That's like the story of my life. I don't know about you guys. I'm not crazy. My reality is just different from yours. All right, so coming in with some liquid adhesive, I'm going to adhere the waterfall there next to my sentiment. And then off camera, I did cut out a piece of craft EVA foam that I have adhered to the back of the mirror piece. And then that I'm going to go ahead and glue down on top of the waterfall. This waterfall stamp is so cool. It goes, you can put it behind the mirror. There's a window that you can put it behind. There's some stairs that you can make it look like it's pouring off of. There's just so many different ways to use it. It's so cool. You guys will have to check out this set. I love these stamps. All right, now adhering a piece of craft EVA foam that I cut that sprinkled scallop using that sprinkle scallops die, and then I'm adhering that with some liquid adhesive to a piece again of the Hero Arts black cardstock. Now certainly you don't have to use a whole piece like I do here. You could cut out the center of the black piece and use that for something else. I just went ahead and used the whole piece. And then I have this really pretty pink shimmery paper from Hero Arts that came in a mystery bag that I bought. And I don't know if they sell it individually. If they do, I will put that down below in the description, and I'll link everything I'm using down below in the description. And please, if you have any questions about anything that I've used or how something worked or what I was doing, absolutely leave a comment. I do try and answer those as quickly as I can. Now coming in, I'm going to adhere that down to that pretty pink sparkly paper that you can see I adhered to an A2 card base. And now off camera, I went ahead and arranged these really cool little embellishments from Trinity Stamps. I put those on the card, and I saved you my fussing over where to have them all. But now I'm just coming in and gluing them all down. I cannot get over how cool this card looks. All right, check this out up close. Ah, it looks so cool. All right, guys, here are my two finished cards. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you get to creating and making something today. Be sure to like and subscribe as well as hit the notification bell so I can continue to bring you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, guys, happy crafting.